Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're back once again with the High Elves, and I know I've been playing them a lot lately, but a lot of people think they're a little bit underpowered, and so I've been trying to explore them and try out some different things and, see what we can learn. And so today we've got another kind of different sort of build for you. The core is very much familiar. We've got Teclis here, and some people might think that Teclis is a little boring, but I actually quite like him. He's one of the strongest spellcasters in the game and has a very nice spell selection. Enfeebling Foe, Nets of Ammontok, and Regrowth is my go-to, just to make him a buff bot healer, or debuff bot rather, healer and netter. Very strong overall. He also has the Potion of Troy just in case he gets compromised, and we decided to bring the Bound Fiery Convocation because in this matchup you're probably going to be facing some peasant infantry, potentially. We've also got 5 units of spearmen because, obviously against Bretonnia you might see knights, and we've also got 2 units of dragon princes, 2 nobles, which is again the familiar core I was talking about, and we've also got 2 Frostheart Phoenixes. So this is something that Turin recommended that I try out, so I wanted to give it a shot here. And some of you also mentioned in my Green Knight video that I did the other day that this is an option for the High Elves to deal with the Green Knight, and you're totally right. Thankfully my opponent has brought the Green Knight here so we can try and demonstrate that today. And the other thing too is that the Frostheart Phoenix in particular provides this nice debuff aura. If we go ahead and look here, it causes this minus 9 melee attack and minus 10% armor piercing, which when combined with heavily armored high elf units is very, very powerful. And the minus 9 melee attack is a pretty strong debuff. I mean, that's one of the larger kind of constant melee attack debuffs in the game. And what that allows is for this kind of goon squad here where I run a unit of dragon princes, noble, and the Frostheart Phoenix, and we're going to kind of use them together to alpha strike units of Grail Knights or Grail Guardians in particular. I mean, obviously the Phoenix does magic damage and armor piercing, so it can kind of one-shot unit models. Doesn't do this with the best splash attacks, but it can potentially, goon unit models, and the Dragon Princes obviously with the debuff will perform much better there. You can even throw in Flaming Sword of Ruin on Teclis. I didn't quite have the spend for it on this particular replay, but you can do that as well to give everything in this pocket magic damage, and then they'll really put a pounding on Grail tier units. But overall, I wanted to give it a shot and see how it works, so let's go ahead and kick the battle into full gear. And you know what, actually, we'll slow-mo as we take a look at my opponent's army here. He's got Battle Pilgrims, 4 units of them, 3 units of Foot Squires, 3 Archers, 2 Men-at-Arms with Polearms, a unit of Royal Pegasus Knights, which you don't see too often, a Prophetess Lore of Life, which you also don't see too often, and the Green Knight, and a unit of Mounted Yeomen. So let's go ahead and now kick the battle into full gear, and we'll watch as things unfold. So there are parts of this army that I really like and parts that I am very much questioning. I mean, high magic is a huge risk, so I really question bringing a Flying Lord and Royal Pegasus Knights against the High Elves. That being said, I didn't bring high magic, so thankfully for my opponent that's going to be in his advantage, but due to the pathing issues on Royal Pegasus Knights, I find they're very rarely effective. They are going to be able to get some nice work done on these Dragon Princes here, but I mean, we just shattered those Yeomen. I mean, shattered them. And then we're going to turn around and just go to Pound Town on everything here. You can see all these units are in that kind of debuff aura. These Royal Pegasus Knights have also been hit with an Enfeebling Foe, so they're really in the pits in terms of their stats, and that's allowing this Phoenix to then get some attacks on the Green Knight here. And obviously, being an ethereal unit, he's not going to like being attacked by this magic unit here, and also the Dragon Prince is poking him in the back. Can't be too comfortable either. Meanwhile, the other unit, seeing as my opponent didn't have any other cavalry for some reason, definitely is going to go just to Pound Town here and kind of mess up this whole infantry line and just do a few charges here to create some nice shock damage. Then my opponent's going to kind of file in and attack my spearmen here. We're definitely taking the sour end of this engagement, though, especially once these Men-at-Arms with Polearms show up. Those Royal Pegasus Knights did better than I thought they would there, and once everything wore off, the terror from the Green Knight as well actually terrified away the Dragon Princes, so that in and of itself is pretty rough. And as well, the Archer Fire, you can see my opponent doing a very good job here. Has got a commanding position up on the hill with these Peasant Bowmen, firing just down and just raining it down on this Phoenix here. Probably doing a little bit of friendly fire as well, but it's definitely worth it to take out this Phoenix, as if he can somehow take out both of my Phoenixes, then his Green Knight here is going to be relatively safe. But you can see the Prophetess Lore of Life looks like she's actually got Regrowth and Dwellers Below. You can see that Dwellers Below being conjured up here. So very reminiscent of late patch Bretonnia in Total War Warhammer 1, where the Dwellers Below was just crazy powerful, as were Royal Pegasus Knights and so on. But the Dwellers Below doesn't quite do what it used to, especially if you don't overcast it. It did do some damage there, though. You can see this noble's being terrified and beat up by the Green Knight, and despite the fact that he has anti-large, he definitely does not want to stand and take this engagement. Meanwhile, we've got some spearmen to file in here and fight these men-at-arms with polearms. You can see them poking at each other and providing a nice anvil for the Dragon Princess to then come in and get a brutal charge here, while the Phoenix once again tries to get on the Green Knight. We've actually got both of the Phoenixes here, and we also dropped Enfeebling Foe on the Green Knight as well, just to put his combat stats in the pits so that we can make solid contact reliably. But my opponent, very well done here, putting a Regrowth on the Green Knight, and he is tanking it out here despite the best assault of both of these Frostheart Phoenixes. Man, he is just taking it. I mean, obviously the healing is a huge part of that, but once the Enfeebling Foe wears off, he's going to have the combat stats to withstand many of their attacks. Frostheart Phoenixes only have 35 attack at the end of the day. He has 48 melee defense, so it'll be pretty hard for them, relatively speaking, to make contact. So we're going to pull this one back up in the air and try and take advantage of the charge bonus, while this other one just gets gunned down. Holy cow, man, that between the Green Knight and that missile fire there, they actually just shattered that Phoenix. So pretty rough for me overall. The battle is still relatively close, all things considered, and you can see a lot of these Foot Squires and Battle Pilgrims here wavering pretty hard, and overall they're just not having the best day, just being pounded by these two units of Dragon Princes, and then, you know, poked to pieces by these Spearmen. So we're going to now try and assault this hill position here in a sense. We're going to get this Fiery Convocation off, which unfortunately I not only misaimed, but due to its immensely absurdly long cast and spin up time, was easily dodged by my opponent. That's one thing that I definitely think that Creative Assembly should address, is just speed up the animation on that spell. I mean, we've all seen it by now. Yes, it looks amazing. Credit to the artist who did that animation. It just takes too long. Please speed it up. It's so easy to dodge. Anyway, we've pretty much shattered most of the infantry here. You can see the bounce power starting to turn in our favor. But we're still going to have to be careful. I mean, my opponent's still online with his Lord up in the air. My Phoenixes have been so focused on the Green Knight that I really haven't had the time to try and chase down this Prophetess. My Phoenixes could potentially catch her. She's about 5 speed faster, so it would be hard. But you can see the Spearmen going to assault this uphill position here, and these pole arms, very healthy still. They've been held in reserve this entire time. Going to valiantly hold the line here, and here comes the Prophetess to call up a Dwellers from Below here. You can see I'm going to pull the heck away with my Dragon Princes, so at least they don't take the damage, but these Spearmen are definitely going to get pulled underground by these terrifying roots, and you know, the Men-at-Arms will definitely take some damage here as well, so a little bit of sacrifice, but considering both my Spearmen were already pretty tattered, it's pretty decent. I had pathed in my Phoenix to try and take these guys down a little bit prematurely, and I don't want to fight the Green Knight here without support, so I'm going to try and get the Phoenix back up in the air, and we're going to come in now with the Dragon Princes and just finish off these archers, who have been able to fire pretty much all of their ammo. More or less, yeah, actually the last 2 units of archers just firing their last volleys now, so a very good use of terrain by my opponent to kind of post up on this high ground here, and then to kind of have the engagement take place here. I mean, obviously I could have tried to go all the way around, but since I'm a little impatient and that would have taken too long, and plus my opponent could have then just reacted, set up his forces here with his archers like right here or something. Very nicely played by my opponent. A very unorthodox army, and at first I was like, oh man, what is he doing? But then halfway through the battle I was like, oh man, what is he doing? You know, it's one of those things where at first I'm like, but then partway through the battle I suddenly see what he's doing, and overall, you know, I can see this working against certain high elf armies, and thankfully I had the tools to deal with it. But overall, very well played to my opponent. We are going to finish off the Green Knight here with the pigeon, the frosty pigeon, and he's going to get down. So unfortunately, sad day for Bretonnia and a victory for the High Elves. And yeah, fun stuff. Well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that battle. In terms of the Dragon Princes there, you can see why I was kind of ragging on the Battle Pilgrims and the Foot Squires. They're just going to get run over by Dragon Princes. 203 and 334 kills, and that's not against like cheap peasant units. That's against the more expensive tier of peasant units. And I mean, Foot Squires do have 70 armor, but 70 armor is not enough to hold up against the insane charge bonus of Dragon Princes, and that's why I typically like to go with just pure anti-large defensive infantry when I'm playing Bretonnia, like just spearmen at arms and pole arms, you know, men at arms with pole arms, spearmen at arms with shields preferably, so that they can take missile fire and have more melee defense. But yeah, this is kind of a good showcase of why I like to do that, so that at the very least you can brace up, and you're not going to win that infantry fight per se, but it's going to take a long time for spears to cut through spearmen at arms with shields especially. And the Dragon Princes obviously can't just charge you in the face like I did there and get in absurd numbers of kills. So in the end, though, my opponent doing very well to keep the Green Knight alive there under the relentless assault of those Frostheart Phoenixes. I actually kind of lost out on that one, and those Royal Pegasus Knights, although I was kind of bagging on them, they did actually end up performing relatively decently there, although the Green Knight actually may have been more of the one doing the damage there, and less so the Royal Pegasus Knights. It's hard to say, but they definitely did some work overall. And yeah, the Peasant Bowmen able to fire in unopposed for quite a long duration there. Fortunately, they just really didn't have the AP values to get through. Frostheart Phoenixes have pretty decent armor, if I remember correctly. We'll take a look at in just a moment here. But the Nobles, you know, one of them kind of got shut down there. He got caught out a little bit and then just massacred by the Green Knight. But the other one managed to rack up 61 kills, did very well overall. And Teclis was never really challenged there. So interesting to see the Prophetess. You know, you don't get to see her as a Lord choice too often, but if you do want a life caster as a Lord in the air, she's an option. And I mean, it's not crazy unviable to see her, particularly because she carries an item, I believe, that gives a magic resistance. So let's go ahead and just briefly take a look here. I know the Prophetess is something you'll almost never see, and you know, I'm honestly not a fan, but I mean, it is a choice, so let's go ahead and take a look. And my opponent actually used it relatively well there, so you can take her on the Pegasus as opposed to the Fanchantress, who cannot go in the air. So if you believe you can take an aerial advantage, and I mean, hopefully Creative Assembly fixes the pathing on Royal Pegasus Knights so that Bretonnia is once again a very scary air faction, because currently they're just not, because Royal Pegasus Knights are really underwhelming. But anyway, you can take, you know, whatever spell selection you so choose. Something like what my opponent had here would look like this, so that you can actually put some damage out with her as well. Not only can you put out healing, but damage. And then this item here is what I was talking about, the Scepter of Stability, plus 44% magic resistance. So I'm not sure, I didn't catch in the battle if she had this item, but if you're running the Green Knight, and you're afraid you might come up against something with magic damage, like a Phoenix, for example, for at least a duration, you can get some immunity to that. Now, granted, it only lasts 22 seconds, so it's not a very long time, but there's no cap on the uses of this thing, and it's a 60-second cooldown, so you can potentially get some pretty decent uptime from that. We've also got this channeling staff here that gives minus 15 ability recharge, so that'll even take the recharge time of this even further down if you continuously spam this as well. So very good stuff overall, and I kind of see what my opponent was going for there, especially if you bring this Scepter of Stability. It can make the Green Knight a lot more survivable if your opponent happens to bring the right counter to him. And then the rest of my opponent's army, I mean, I already talked about the infantry, what my thoughts were there. The money that you save there, just pour it into some elite tier cavalry. Even if Grail Knights are a big risk against the High Elves, they're still going to be pretty powerful in the right situation, especially if you support them well. So something like this, maybe, if we go ahead and just grab some cheap units. You may want a Grail Relic as well, just to protect against terror. Maybe grab a couple of Grail Knights, and then, you know, you could have the Archer line as well. And this still leaves you a pretty decent amount of spend. We're going to forego the Royal Pegasus Knights as well, and we almost have enough for one more Grail Knight, but I'm going to settle for a Questing Knight to help support in the frontline engagement. They'll be decent against armored High Elf infantry, and if you come up against just pure spears like that, just get them into a position to rear charge, and they should do just fine. So yeah, at this point you have some money to do whatever you wish with chevrons. You know, maybe upgrade one of these guys to poison, or maybe upgrade one of them to fire damage. You don't want to have fire damage against dragon princes per se, but they do slightly more AP if I remember correctly. Let's actually take a look. 2 AP versus the poison, which does 3. Oh no, so the poison's actually better in that respect. So we all learned something today. So maybe you could upgrade those to poison arrows. Should give you a little bit of advantage in that respect as well. And something like this I might actually be tempted to try out myself. I mean, obviously the prophetess is going to be very exposed in the air all alone like this, but honestly the Royal Pegasus Knights are just not enough. And maybe if you fly over these pox arrows, they can put some fire into whatever's chasing her. If they're relatively light troops, or if they're something heavy, maybe you just want to go with the Fanchantress on the ground. But anyway, there are my thoughts on that particular battle. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you like that content there, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. And if you'd like, hit that bell notification button so that every time I'm uploading a new video, you'll be notified. Thank you very much for watching once again, and we'll see you next time.